Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. Once again, this is episode number 230, entitled K is for Killer Tips. It was published on Thursday, the 20th of May, 2021. My name's Nathan Wrigley, and as usual, just before we begin, a few bits of housekeeping. Head over to our main website, wpbuilds.com. Over there, you're going to find all sorts of content that we produce each and every week. We produce a podcast. It's what you're listening to now every Thursday. We also do a Monday show called This Week in WordPress, and you can find us live doing that. And we repurpose that and put that out as an audio podcast and a video over on our YouTube channel. If you would like to stay up to date with the things that we produce, the best way to do that is to go to wpbuilds.com/subscribe. And over there you'll find links to all of the ways that we produce our content. So there's our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, there's some lists that you can subscribe to keep updated and so on and so forth. So that's wpbuilds.com/subscribe. If you're in the market for a WordPress product or service this week, you might want to go to the WP Builds deals page because it's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. Over there, you're going to find coupon codes for all sorts of WordPress related products. And you never know, you might be able to find something exactly to your liking. wpbuilds.com/deals. And lastly, if you are interested in advertising on the WP Builds podcast, and why wouldn't you be, you may well have a product or service in the WordPress space and you would like to put it in front of a WordPress specific audience. Well, you can do that. wpbuilds.com/advertise. And if you fill out the form over there, we'll be in touch and we'll see if we can work things out. A bit like these two companies did. The WP Builds podcast is brought to you by Termageddon. When you build contact forms for client websites, you may be forcing that client to comply with multiple privacy laws. Rather than avoiding discussing the importance of privacy policies with your clients, try out Termageddon, the auto-updating privacy policy generator. The best part is that Termageddon gives web agencies a free set of their policies forever, in the hope that you like their product and use their reseller or referral programs to help your clients get protected too. Your clients get protected, you make more recurring revenue. Go to termageddon.com and click the Agency Partners page to receive your free license today. And A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B Split Test in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, and the WordPress block editor. Check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. And we do thank our sponsors for their support putting on the WP Builds podcast each and every week. Okie dokie, let's get on with the podcast proper, shall we? We're going through the alphabet, the A to Z of WordPress as we're calling it, and we finally got to the letter K, and what better for K than killer tips? What we did is David reached out to our Facebook group. You can find that, by the way, at wpbuilds.com/Facebook, and over there he asked the question, have you got any fabulous killer tips that you deploy and use when you're building WordPress websites? And many people reached out. So that's what this episode is about. User-generated content, some fabulous ideas, and we throw in a few ideas of our own. Many of these I really had never thought of, and so it's a really actually useful episode for once. K is for Killer Tips, episode number 130. I hope that you enjoy it.
Hello, it's another A to Z of WordPress, the series where we attempt to cover all the major aspects of building and maintaining sites with WordPress. Today is K for Killer WordPress Tips, and we're cheating a bit here. It's been a while since we've had a chat where we featured the thoughts of the WP Builds Facebook group. So, interestingly, before I looked into this topic, I researched a few articles that gave tips and to see if there was anything there. And just luckily, our group seemed to have just covered everything that was mentioned in all these other articles. So, yay to our group.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a fabulous bunch of people they are. And there's a whole ton in here that I would never, ever have come up with myself.
I know. And some really, it's a lot of simple stuff that perhaps a lot of people say, well, I just know that. It's basic stuff. But I made me think it just depends where you are on your journey. And again, for me as well, there's some stuff that I haven't paid much attention to. Some stuff is just, yeah, it's obvious, isn't it? So it's an interesting one. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've organized this a little bit. So we've got sections. We've got using WordPress. Then we've got a bit on design. I asked somebody really if they would contribute to that because that's not our strength. Tools and resources and business and clients. So we'll kick off with the using WordPress.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, we got first is Tom Carlos. And what he's saying is pointing out that when you now upload a plugin that's already installed, WordPress lets you compare the versions and choose which one you want to use. Where previously, so this is quite new, I think only a few versions back that this came in. But before that, if you tried to upload a plugin when you've got it, it just said, you've got this, go away. And you would have to do it through HTTP or something like that. So yeah, a good feature that clearly a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, when you said that one, I was trying to imagine why I would need this, and then you said, well,
Yeah.
maybe if you're installing a beta version of a plugin which is not the most up-to-date version, then knowing that that's what you're doing would be quite helpful.
Yeah, or you got your plugins from a dodgy source.
Oh, don't.
No, but I used to use a plugin that was great for this. I think it was called something like Easy Theme and Plugin Upgrades, and it used to
Okay.
allow you to bypass what was in WordPress. But now I can get rid of it; just does it. So I think that's a good one because a lot of people would have missed that. I'm sure.
Yep. And is that just a simple text printout saying you've got this in this version with the number, and then this is the version you're trying to install? Here's the number.
Yeah, basically,
Okay.
yeah. It's just a little box comes up in your dialogue just to say this is what you have, and so you can see which one you installed. It doesn't give you.
Right.
I don't think it gives you any more information on that. Maybe it gives you a link.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't really need a lot more than that, but good to know. Nice little feature built in.
Yeah, been a big time saver for me. Yeah,
good.
Yeah, Camo Jones with one which we've talked about, we've confessed to, which is uncheck the discourage search engine settings when going live, of course.
Yes. I don't know if this is my SEO plugin or not, but these days, whenever I have that enabled on a website, that is to say, discourage search engines is enabled, I have a red warning box in the admin bar I can't remember what it says, but it alerts me in no uncertain terms that is disabled. And I'm thinking that's an SEO plugin doing that helpfully. I don't think that's standard WordPress behavior.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's in Yoast. It's definitely in SEO Press as well. So It saves you from forgetting that. It's an odd one as well. If you have a coming soon plugin, you can often leave that as it is. You don't have to discourage. So that's why I've got confused before, because it's been a routine to turn that off, and then I've got into using a coming soon plugin where it's not going to pick up on it anyway. It's only going to pick up on the coming soon page, which sometimes I want that to happen, So it's just one you have to check, I think, every time you go live.
It needs to be on the SOP, doesn't it? Right at the end, more or less the last thing you do. But you're absolutely right. I have done this multiple times. And the reason, I think, is it's just because it's such a benign little checkbox buried inconsequentially in a settings menu. It sort of fades into insignificance. And unless you force yourself to go and check it, it just doesn't get unchecked. And so there it is.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to let you say the next one because I always say the name incorrectly.
Well, I'm going to say the name and then I'm going to leave you to express what it's about. I'm going to try this. I apologize if I butcher your name, but I'm going to say Didu Scholl.
I'm sure you've
Let's
got that
hope
right.
That's his name. Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh, I really like him. He does some great work. He's a developer. So his tip really is aimed at developers. He says since WordPress version 5.2, you can't see the errors when you're developing. So then you need to turn on WP debug, something that he does all the time as he's a developer. But funny enough, he's really made a tip for me because I'm the sort of person who needs to be protected from making my own errors. And it actually is the same it's version 2.5 when they introduced the PHP error protection, so you couldn't get the white screen of death if you're in your functions PHP doing what I do, copying and pasting somebody else's code into there. So yeah,
Yep.
so if you're a developer, then you probably want to turn off the feature. If you're someone like me, then now you can kind of go in and you can't make a mistake in your functions PHP. If you do, generally it protects you if it's bad code.
Yeah. If you put something that doesn't get escaped or something like that, it works it out and doesn't allow you to save it. Yeah, it's nice.
It's still a relatively, I think, probably in the last year, is it, that update?
Yeah. I have a memory of it being.
Maybe.
Was it with the site health check? It came. Was it at the same time as that?
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, recently, you're certainly right. It wasn't a long time ago. It was fairly recently. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a bit of a list now because I didn't really specify in the group what you needed to add. So Colin Needham's gone through a whole bunch of points that he thinks are important. So first one is, and I had to research this a bit, set the time zone to country of origin. And also Louise Findlay also came in and said that setting the country is better than choosing UTC on some plugins. So I didn't actually know what that meant. You came up with the answer, I think, which was daylight saving.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that if you just set UTC or a time zone as opposed to a country, then it can't know if your country moves forwards or backwards an hour. I'm not entirely sure which countries on the planet use daylight saving, but certainly the UK does. And twice a year, the clock goes forwards an hour one time and goes backwards an hour another time. And if it's crucial that you're scheduling posts at a particular time, then this is important. You need it to go out at midday and not 1 o'clock or 11 a.m. And so you've got to set this up right. There's an interesting sort of peculiar thing about WordPress as well. As far as I'm aware, there may be plugins to fix this, but as far as I'm aware, the WordPress install can only have one time zone. So if I was, for example, to set up a WordPress website and it was based in London, the UK time zone, and I had people in Australia posting and they wanted to schedule things to be coming out at a suitable time in the UK, they would have to go to the trouble of figuring out what time that was. Because as far as I'm aware, there's no way of doing it. I did notice next to where you schedule a post, in other words, the time that you're scheduling it, there is a tiny, tiny bit of grayed text which tells you what time zone the site is in. But it's almost easy, so easy to miss. But maybe there's a way of actually setting that on a per user basis. I don't know. I've never really looked into that.
No, I've not looked into it. And I was trying to find out which one you should choose, whether this is correct that you should pick the country rather than the UTC. And there was a bit of a story that I picked up on, not that I fully understood it, but basically they didn't have proper support for this in the early days because WordPress was built on PHP 4, so it had kind of restrictions there. So I think the upshot is they are right that we should be picking on the country of origin and using the UTC if there isn't that option available to us. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you're only going to go an hour astray, I would have imagined, so it's probably not the end of the world. I'm just trying to think of situations where the time might be really crucial. And I guess things like busy WooCommerce stores having the time exactly right would be pretty important for tracking down things like, I don't know, invoices and receipts and things like that. So maybe worth looking at.
Yeah. Oh, we'll carry on with Colin's list here. We've got create a backup, of course. He suggests Updraft for that, another free plugin. Have a plugin to monitor security. WordFence is his recommended one. One here that I like, and I just haven't been consistent with this. Connect the site to Google Search Console and upload a sitemap. And we talked a bit about this. I've now started to make that a thing that I always do with the clients. I make sure, obviously, they've got an account access to it. But I think now with Core Web Vitals coming in, and we're getting a lot more interesting information about accessibility coming from Google, I think it's become a real essential thing to do.
Yeah, I'm with you. But just exactly as you described in the past, I've been a bit lazy. Yeah. It's really amazing how crucial our sites are now connected to Google. I was talking to you about this before we hit record. what with Core Web Vitals and the Search Console and the business listings and everything that goes on, Google really is inextricably tied to everything that we build for our clients. It's supremely important, and on the one hand, that's great, and on the other hand, it's sort of slight pause for concern, really.
Yeah, it is. I think, where it's tipped over for me, previously I didn't worry too much about that, because if the clients weren't interested in talking to me about SEO, which most weren't, then I felt like it wasn't my role any longer. But now it started to, I think I need to know a little bit about how the sites are performing for building other sites. And also, I think the accessibility stuff is stuff that's, impacts on my profession, even if I don't have a SEO relationship with the client now. So I think that's changed a lot for me. Yeah. Test your forms is another one of Collins, of course. Compress your images. That's a big one, I think, for me. I think that's the key thing to performance, really.
Yeah, I would agree. And nowadays, so easy to do with automated plugins and what have you. Set it and forget it type stuff. There's all sorts of different solutions for that we've talked about on previous episodes.
Yeah.
Smush and Short Pixel and a whole bunch of others. Yeah, good idea. Going back to the forms one, I've on a whole multitude of websites in error kind of duplicated forms and then realized the recipient address was completely wrong because I've duplicated it and forgotten to set that up. So that's one to test when you test the forms. Testing the forms, though, can be a bit awkward, can't it? Because you can, to really test it, you want to see if the recipient actually receives it. And so that requires an email chain. And right, I'm about to send you a form.
Yes.
Will you respond to say that you've received it? Can be quite an awkward, and a lengthy procedure. A week later, they still haven't replied and you've forgotten all about it. They forgot about it. So you never quite did test the form and all that's involved in that.
Yeah, usually what I do is when the site's up, I fill in one of the forms on the site with a thing saying, please acknowledge that you got this. But at the same time, because it's going through another service, Mailgun, I can check that it's been accepted and delivered on that side at least. So I've got a good understanding whether they've likely to received it. So, but that's the best.
That was a nice tip, though. You just snuck in there. So you send them a form asking them to respond to the form. That's genius. Right, well, that's that problem solved. Why did I never think of that? Okay, right, fine.
So the last one of Collins is a good one, actually. I think this for accessibility, make sure buttons, links, and text are not too small on mobile. And Search Console will come and tell us actually if our buttons are too small. I think these days.
Yep. You get all sorts of interesting information. Do you receive kind of periodic emails about things like that?
Yeah, I've had the odd one. I think we mentioned this before. You had it as well, and when I've ignored it, something about text being too small. Yeah,
it was definitely small text on mobile, and I'm not entirely sure what it was that they were talking about, because I went to the page on a mobile device, and you really would to have been hard of sight. I really couldn't see anything wrong with it, so I'm not sure what the stipulations are, what the algorithm was that was at play there. But anyway, it alerted me to the fact that I had to think about it. But I didn't adjust anything, and I never received any more information about it. So I'm just hoping it goes away.
Yeah, I think sometimes things in Search Console, particularly I've noticed this with Core Web Vitals, as now some results are coming in if you don't agree with them. I mean, the things I just couldn't change, and I just go and say it's fixed, and the next thing I'm passing, So, yeah, I don't think it's perfect in what it picks up on.
No.
David McCann's next with a user starter site for time saving.
No.
Yes, I know you're wrong, but he and me are right on this one.
Well, it's me versus the rest of the world. We've been through this before, haven't we? My simple desire to set up a WordPress website involving absolutely every step. I have no idea why I enjoy doing that. I find it quite cathartic. It's one of the most brainless activities that I can do in my week, but I quite like doing it and pasting in the license keys and all of that. I know, very sad. So David is right. You are right. I am wrong, but I'm not going to change it.
But you know what? Actually, interestingly enough, there is a danger when you have it all set up and you repeat it. So you don't get into these conversations about whether things have changed when it comes to things like time zones, etc., because you just don't start fresh again any longer. So,
well, that's a really good point, and not one that I would love to say that that's the reason I did it, so that I could be absolutely certain I'd got everything right. It isn't that. It is simply that I kind of just enjoy doing it. But you do notice the tiny minor UI changes, and when things in core do move around a little bit, you do spot them.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, it's so rare, it's not worth doing. But anyway, you're right. David's right. I back down, but I'm not going to change. I'm an old curmudgeon.
And the last one under this section is Jay Ovins Hennig, who's doing a bit of a self-plug, actually. He offers some stuff later as well. But he has a plugin called Admin's Page Spider, which allows you to navigate around your WordPress quickly by lots of kind of drop-down menus. So, but I think basically what you're saying is worth looking around at some of the options that there are out there, to kind of speed up your workflow. I've got into using Assistant by the Beaver Builder team as doing a similar job, just to get round.
Yeah, especially if you're new to WordPress, you probably have the impression that the WordPress UI is the only way it can be. And of course, there's a whole range of plugins. You've just mentioned Beaver Builder's Assistant, and Jay mentioned his own Admin Page Spider. There are labor-saving ways of having extra things in your admin area so that you can get to certain things that you want. As an example, his plugin offers a great big long list of all the pages so that you don't have to go back to the dashboard, click pages, and then locate the right one. You can see them all in a drop down from the admin bar, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly as page builders go, we spend more time in WordPress in the front end, going from front to back and stuff like that. So it is worth sometimes seeing what's going to fit with you, I think, for those kind of tools.
There's been a lot of things, hasn't there? David Von Gries had his plugin to do this, and you've got things from Arindo Duque from WP Ultimo, ways of modifying the dashboard and what have you. And I guess if this is a top tip for somebody, customize the dashboard for your clients might be a really nice tip, just so that you save yourself problems in the future of them not being able to navigate their way around things.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we move on to the design section? So I kind of really asked for some basic tips here, and really Chantel Edward Betsy was the person who picked up on this, because I know it's her kind of area. She makes very pretty sites. So
thank you, Chantal.
Yeah, so really, I think she gave kind of 3 points, but I think basically she's saying get a system. So first she was saying about typographic scaling that she's using, being able to choose kind of these base font size and being able to scale these up and down. And I guess she's also talking about line heights and just having a system to do that. It's definitely, honestly, it's only like 4 months ago. I mean, how many years have I been kind of building websites that I started to seriously look into a system, REM-based in my case, to try and organize this. So when I move from styling either from mobile to the desktops, that I have some kind of system so it all, fits together and doesn't go wonky.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're 4 months ahead of me, because I still haven't got a system like that. I kind of feel that in the days when things were done in the customizer and you just had your theme and you set everything up in the customizer, you were kind of less likely to go wrong. You would get things, whether or not it was as Core Web Vitals would have it. It was something that you were happy with. You set it up over there, and then you just used the classic editor, wrote your content, and it came out looking how it should look. All the H1s were that size, and all the H2s and the paragraphs were that size. Mm-hmm. But with the advent of page builders, so easy to have pages where everything looks completely different because you've simply forgotten what it was that you set up on each individual page. And so having something, as Chantal says, where you make the effort and you write it all down and you think about it, gives you I guess we're coming back to that with page builders having sort of global options and things like that. But interesting.
Yeah, she also mentioned something which I haven't looked up. In fact, I'm just Googling it now quickly. But she says something about look out for perfect fourth scale, her personal favorite.
Perfect fourth scale, like the number 4.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've never heard what that is.
Maybe in typography. I need to look that up later. Sorry about that. I didn't do it. Our next point was also about accent colors, about being just that, accent used for accents. Sorry, Nathan, I'm just laughing here because I moved my arms and pulled my headset out.
Podcasting error 101. Don't have the wire particularly close to the head. I've done that kind of thing so many times. I try to sit absolutely stock still so that I don't knock anything, but sometimes it's really hard. Anyway, sorry, accent colours.
Yes. Well, yeah, she's saying make them accents. And I understand what she's talking about. Don't you? If you want something to call out on your page, you don't want too many random colours around on your page, else otherwise they're not going to focus on that. Often it's a very shouty out, clear colour for a call to action button that you really want to stand out. So I think I understand what she's saying. But
so is she basically saying be minimal and use it sparingly?
Yeah, I think she's saying that. And maybe she's also talking about the idea that, again, something I need to look into. There are systems for this, and I've ignored it, to get a kind of color palette that you use and, to have a logic to those. Because we talked about this ourselves offline about, often come to a button and then you want the hover over color for that, and you kind of just, as you're in the page builder, you just darken it a little bit and then you forget about it, move to the next button.
Yeah, so the next button is you know that you want the buttons to be darker on the hover state, but you're not exactly sure what the hex value was. So my technique for that is basically in the sort of color picker. So long as I know the original color, and I can't forgive myself for that the original color has to be right because the buttons all have to be the same color. Then I basically just go darker by about 0.5 centimeter on the screen. I go south about 0.5 centimeter, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's how it kind of works for me. But it's nice if you've got a palette that you set up in there. I mean, there's so many tools around there, so many great online palette generators, and get a logic to how you set them up. But anyway,
right.
And the other point of Chantal's was about using white space. She's making the point that it isn't 1995 any longer. People are used to scrolling and having things spaced out, and I absolutely agree. And having some kind of method as well to maybe setting out your sections, the kind of spacing that you might have, and that you have again, it's more about the systems that she's saying she might pad things out on our sections, sort of 90 to 100 pixels or on the desktop side, and then she would have settings that she would go to for tablet and mobiles, and these would be some sort of standard spacing. And I think that's really important as well, something I've been bad at.
Yeah, when you do this, so as an example, Chantal wrote down as for illustration purposes, maybe on desktop you'd have padding of rows of 70 to 100 pixels, tablets maybe 35 to 50, and then mobile 20 to 30 pixels, we're talking here. So she's obviously got those anecdotally in her head. I'm wondering if she just has them passed away in her head, and then when she comes to build things, she just knows what she wants to do, or if she's got some sort of system of, I don't know, pre-configured modules for her page builder, which last time I heard she was still using Beaver Builder, so that she can drag them in and they're already pre-configured to be like that.
Yeah, I think she does both. Remember, she's on Page Builder Summit as well. She was talking about the fact that she does save some design elements out, so maybe a bit of both in that. And I must admit, I started to do that, set these spaces, and I kind of know them in my head, and then I stuffed myself up by experimenting and moving more to percentage-based layouts with stuff. So I've kind of starting again from scratch.
Yeah.
But
You've forgotten what you've set where.
Yeah, so I'm still working out. I find percentages are quite a nice way of getting spaces, the same as rems are quite a nice way of being able to, with one setting, change the view and have it all look the same for different devices. But it's still a lot to work on, because I guess kind of support issues are there with that. But anyway, that's enough. But basically, I think what Chantal's saying is, for those basic things of color, scaling, and space, type, color, and space, get a system. And
good advice.
We've got, what else have we got in here?
We're back to Jay.
We're back to Jay as well. Yeah, so he has come up with some other stuff, not all plugs. He says try designing for mobile first, saves a lot of hassle, that kind of stuff. I agree. It's interesting. This is a big topic, isn't it? Mobile first, because we could be talking about how we go about coding things, or how we go about thinking of the design. But yeah.
Do you know, I really haven't been following the statistics about how mobile is adopted. I mean, we all know that mobile is the preferred method for almost everybody. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that curve is still going up or if it's kind of settled a bit. Whether or not mobile is absolutely guaranteed to be the way that people are consuming your website first. I can only imagine that trend's going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's funny. I was looking at the statistics for B2B site that I look after only the other day, and I just noted that their mobile use, they always had some, but largely it was they were viewing their site from their offices in working office hours time, and that I saw no increase in their mobile rate, which was quite low, about 10% for them. Yeah, so
okay.
I don't know about it's bound to be. I mean, I'm in India, and you see the growth. More and more people, whoever you are in India, can now get a mobile phone and get connected to the internet. So I think
it's
grow.
Interesting. I have a relationship with my phone where just because it's in my pocket, I end up kind of browsing on the internet. But I increasingly find a lot of the things that I need to do frustrating on the internet. And quite often I find myself almost like note to self, go back to this website on desktop and complete what it is that you want to do over there. So I'm kind of using my mobile phone as a conduit to discover things. It may be that I see something on Facebook or Twitter and I'll go over there and explore it. And then I think actually for a better experience of this, I'll wait until I'm on a desktop. Maybe that's slightly unusual, but I do feel that mobile is so much more accessible just because it's in your pocket all the time. But I wonder what the percentage of concerted effort on a website is on mobile as opposed to desktop. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm in a village, and I'm pretty sure that my wife and I will be the only people in this village who will look at a desktop. Everybody else, the internet is what is in their mobile.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
It's
that
an interest.
Settles it.
But also, you might be right. There might be another trend that a lot of people want to not use their mobile so much. Break away from things like that.
Well, that does seem to be a common trope at the minute. People are talking about overconsumption of technology and trying to limit things. And I don't know, but I still feel Jay is right. Building for the mobile first does seem like a sensible strategy because of where we are right now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Also, he's got one that I like, which is don't overcomplicate things. Animations and transitions and fancy stuff like that are attractive, but best used conservatively. So yeah, best to learn the basics first, isn't it? And then if you've got that right, then you can start to add on the other stuff.
Well, this is interesting as well because I feel that we're kind of almost coming full circle. And maybe we've taken about 4 or 5 years to do this circle, but 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of these animations and things were just beyond most people. You had to actually get into the code and learn CSS or JavaScript, CSS transitions and so on. And, it's a bit fiddly and maybe the time spent on that could have been better used in some other way. So all of this stuff got rolled into page builders and it was really cool. And there was lots of fabulous things that could be done with page builders. And then I'm just wondering if people now are just a bit fed up of them. They want less distraction. They want things to be more static on the page just because it's a bit less strain, a bit less for your eye to get drawn away from the main event and so on. And so now I see less dramatic transitions and far more subtle transitions. They're still there, but they're very much, a minor fade or a slight movement in horizontal space or something as you scroll. But it would appear that the overcomplicating things, maybe it was just a case of we can do this, so we will. And now we're coming out the other side and thinking, actually, most of that's just window dressing that diverts attention from what we actually want people to see.
Yeah, and I think it goes a little bit with the people building the sites. More people are building sites for the first time on their own, and you kind of, it becomes about you rather than the visitor when you're new to it. So you kind of have to go through this and try all the cool stuff, and then of course, something like Core Web Vitals, which can very easily penalize you if you've got in your viewport lots of things moving around. People are wanting to pull it out again. So
So don't overcomplicate is good advice, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you're saying about avoid pop-ups. They're not working as effectively as they used to do, and they annoy users. As I guess they've always annoyed them. But he's making.
Do you know? I don't know about this because I think if they're invoked by the user, let's say a button provides a form.
Yes.
You clearly wanted the form. And being taken to another page might be more hassle than just seeing the form in a pop-up. So I guess what he's talking about there is the unwanted pop-ups when you exit, the exit intent and things like that, all of that. And I would totally agree with that. But I would sort of say I think there is a place for pop-ups, but usually when it's invoked by the user.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a massive difference. Yeah, good point. The other one was, he's working in marketing a bit these days, and he's saying, one of the crucial things is just to bear in mind that above the fold real estate, there's a lot of talk about this. People will scroll more these days, true, but it's really about what is in the top is going to be important to catch people's attention. And I'm completely with this. And I've had some success. So a little tip of mine really is there's a guy called Donald Miller who does StoryBrand. I'm sure a lot of people know. There are a couple of free videos. There's 3 of them that are 5-minute long called 5-minute marketing makeovers. And I send the link. I don't get the clients to sign up to it even because you can get directly to the links to show these videos. And they have been wonderful in doing what I can't do, which is to try and get the client to think about the homepage and the importance of that hero section. So, yeah.
So these 3 videos that you just mentioned, this is something that's freely available. There's no opt-in or anything. Mm-hmm. You can just go, you could send your clients to this website, and what you're saying is that he does a great job of explaining the importance of this part of the homepage and that part, and he's just distilled it in a really consumable form, whereas you struggle to describe why this is important and why that's not important and so on.
Yeah, he has tons more credibility than me, and it's obviously a professional video, but he just says, this is where websites go wrong. He's marketing. It's got to pass the grunt test, as he called it. People have got to understand what's there and the reason to carry on with it. And I think, to try and get to try and get clients to think about their visitors, it's always been quite tricky because they maybe come with the idea, I want a big slider on there just showing photos and I'll put the text below it. If they show them something like this video, they go, it's really useful. And ultimately their ideas and the things that they put in terms of the copy on that is so much better from the client for me. So we're on the same page. So anyway, good tip.
No, that's really useful though, because I struggle to explain that. Certainly, it would be consuming my time to explain that, and I don't think I'd do a very good job. And if you can just point somebody and say, "Look, go off, watch these 3 videos. It'll take you 20 minutes, and then come back and we'll talk once you've understood what all these components do and why they're supposed to be there."
Yeah, they just sort of buy into how he puts it, and I just think it's the last 3 builds I've done like that, shown it, and they've all said, "Oh, that's really good." And I think the way they talk to me and what they offer for the homepage is clearly influenced by watching that. So
good. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next section, tools and resources. And we ain't got so many with these ones, actually. We've got Brenda Malone has offered a couple of, these are really great ones.
Yeah, they are.
The first one is formstyler.com, which is a site which basically allows you to you can style things within its interface for different types of forms and grab the CSS and add them to your site.
Yeah, where has this been all my life? So
I know.
It's so good. I mean, I genuinely had never heard of it before, but if you go there, just like David said, it looks like the options currently are Ninja Forms, Fluent Forms, Gravity Forms, PeerNet Forms, and Contact Form 7. And you just muck about with the styling. So you want to change the field background colors or the border width or whatever, the normal stuff that you would do to style a form, and then it just spits out the CSS. It's so good.
yeah Lots of people love that one. She's somebody who always knows about these kind of little tools. I don't know how she manages to.
We're very happy to have her around, that's for sure.
Yeah. And the next one that she came up with here, we just didn't understand, but now we get it, which was it's a long URL with this one, wpdevtools.io/tools/plugin plugin-explorer.
Well said.
Yeah, and this, well, when you look at it, you just think, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah, what is it? What's going on?
It's just all this kind of bubble tags all over the place. But you can search it and find it's the search facility and the ability to be able to search through what's available, I think, only on the repository in terms of plugins. So, your interest you can put in there, and then you can search through, and you can see at a glance which ones have got high ratings, which ones are kind of popular, and it's really useful.
It really is. It's genius. But the thing is, you've got to know to search.
Yeah.
So it's like an old-fashioned Flash tag cloud.
Yeah.
Where the bigger the plugin, the bigger the bubble that the plugin is in, the more favorable it is. I think it's based upon the number of installs. You can change that. So you can change the bubbles based upon the install base, the user rating, or you can just make everything equal sizes. And so I, for example, I just typed in the word speed, thinking, it would then spit out things like caching plugins and SEO and that kind of stuff. It does. It's brilliant. And then it just presumably goes and searches the repository for any plugin which has got the word speed attached to it in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And it just puts them up. And so you can see this has got a rating of 4.8. This has got 5, and it's big, so it must have lots of installs. I'll go and check that out. It's really good.
Yeah, it is. Right, well, we'll move on to the next one, which is Peter Ingersoll. We've got a few bits and pieces in different sections, I think, from him. So his first one is his top WP resource is the Kinsta blog, and I completely agree with. Do you know, all the searches I've been doing recently where it's been kind of more complex stuff, I've ended up landing on their pages, and their blog posts are really good. So yeah.
Big shout out to they do a lot of hard work making those blog posts. I think it's a testament to whatever team they've got going on there.
Yeah, and they've got some videos as well, really well made. Oh, yeah, and also he's got another plugin as well, which is I don't know if I'll use this one so much, but it's a plugin called Find My Blocks to find plugins.
Yes, yeah. We are going to get sort of into some sort of recursive loop, aren't we? Where got plugins to find plugins and blocks to find blocks. But it says Find My Blocks is a WordPress plugin built to help find where you have used specific Gutenberg blocks on your WordPress website. So we're going to get to the point where if you can so simply install blocks inside the Gutenberg interface, the block editor, I can well imagine there'll come a time when you've maybe, a client has got trigger happy and I don't know, maybe they want the dreaded slider. So they type in slider and install a plugin and then on the next page, they want something else. And so there's a plugin for that, or rather there's a block for that. And 67 blocks later, you've no idea what you've used where. Yeah. So the idea of this is, we've had this with page builders and stuff, haven't we? Which pages are using the page builder module. And so on. So it's a nice idea. It's one for the future. Maybe not. Maybe its time is yet to come.
Yeah, I've just snuck another one in by this guy called David Wamsley.
Okay.
My tools and resources. I'll just throw them in. Not really WordPress, but CodePen.io is a place that I go to so much, and also W3 Schools just really avoiding another plugin, but those two places as a way of being able to add some stuff in without having to get one more plugin are my top kind of resources these days. And
W3 Schools seems to be the one where if I want to know anything about CSS, it and CSS tricks always seem to be at the top. If I've forgotten how to do something, it always gives me them as the as the resource to use, and then you go and onto the page and check it out and try something and see if it works or not. They're great.
Yeah, and it's like CodePen a lot these days because there's some great working examples. So if you wanted an accordion that you just want to do with HTML or a CSS slider because you don't want a heavy slider plugin, then you can often just go and copy and paste their code. It's working. So so I think they're a great resource. Just if you just want to keep down your plugins, which is usually one of the big problems, isn't it? Yeah. So, okay, next section then is...
Can I throw one tool in quickly?
Oh, yes, sure.
The one that I seem to be using more than I probably should, it's a site called Coolors. So it's COOLORS.co. and it's just a palette of 5. You can just click a button and it'll generate a random color palette, and it's total voodoo. Every time I click the button, I think, oh, I could use that. And then I click the button and think, oh, I could use that. Oh, it's brilliant. I don't know what the algorithm is, but they're just very tastefully done. And then you can actually go in and modify. So you could lock a particular one of the 5 and then change the other ones. And you can change all sorts of attributes of the colors on the adjacent ones. It's just very nice. If you've not come across it and you want a super simple way to generate a color palette, which is quite tasteful, then this is worth it.
And it's the way it works as well. If you grab the URL with your colors in it, you've got that for all time. So I use that as my little color palette. Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it.
I've actually, there's another little thing. I paste that in to my styles.css file. I paste the URL in.
Yes, me too.
Oh, you do the same thing. So I paste it as a comment.
Yeah.
Just so that it's invisible. But there I've got a permanent record of where I started out with the color palette.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Isn't that weird? We both do that. Okay.
Yeah. It's only a recent thing for me as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We have been doing it for a little while. So you just paste it in as a comment. It's hidden, but it's got so the URL is the hex values separated by hyphens, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Nice trick. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Business and clients. We've got Colin 80 at, so I haven't got his full surname here, but this is really my favorite. Quick one. Lean stack and master what you have. Killer tip. I think the most important one I've had to learn.
Yeah, settle on something that you like. Get good at it. That seems to be the wisdom in everything, though, isn't it? It's not just WordPress websites. It's just any walk of life. Find the thing that you're good at and just devote time to it and become an expert. Unless it's something which is truly going out of fashion, it's probably going to serve you well if you become really good at that one particular thing.
But it's counter to, I guess, why a lot of people are so attracted to WordPress, because it is just, you're in a sweetie shop, aren't you, with all of these plugins and themes that you can try for free. And, it really can lead you down the wrong path for many years. I'm sure it did with me. So, getting back to that is I think it's a great tip for WordPress users, particularly.
Yeah. Thank you, Colin. Good advice.
Yeah. Jen Harris, am I saying that correctly?
I think so. HERRES. Yep.
Yeah. She's leading us on. Well, actually, the next two are very similar in a way. So she's saying, never assume what the client says mean what you think it means. And she does tell a little bit of a story, which I won't go into, but always really dig into the details of expected behavior. So, this is just about client communication, isn't it, really, here?
Yeah, I think on the whole, I'm reasonable at intuiting what the client wants, but I'm not really, really good at it. And drilling down and being absolutely clear is crucial. And you only learn that by having a client where you thought you were being clear, and then they turn around and say, no, that's totally not what I meant. And that's happened so many times. Really? Oh, really? What, you think that word means that? Oh, okay.
It's so much. Even the colleague I work with had a habit of calling. I think it's because what she worked with originally on the web. So links, she was always calling them buttons. So I was always, for a long time, misinterpreting what she said. And then there's the same with headers. So I've got this terminology. I know my header, and then I've got a hero section. But for many, that hero section is their header.
Yeah. But also, it's like, it's really jarring when you meet a client who uses all the right terms. You kind of think, hang on, what's going on here? Is this an April Fool, or have they just actually done a bit of research? I had a client, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, I had a client who thought that rows were called pages. So everything that I called a page, she thought was about 7 or 8 pages because it had 7 or 8 rows. And it was really hard to get her to understand anything because she kept using the word page interchangeably with row. Oh,
yeah. I tell you what, I mean, the expected behavior, I think, is a good term that she used. She put that in quotes, and I think maybe she's talking about where someone might request a certain feature that they expect, and you think, oh, that's going to work that way. But actually, now I've learned a little bit to break that down into, so, this slider, you want it to have a button. When that button's clicked on, what does it need to do? Each thing, break it down into. So when someone does this, what does it need to do? Which
this sort of gets back to the old kind of wireframes, doesn't it? And all of those wonderful things that we used to have, and then an actual grayscale mock-up, just so that you're on the same page. Okay, so when I click this button, it goes over to this page, and there's a form on that page, and you have to click. Yeah. But increasingly, I think because everybody is using the internet, everybody is a bit of an expert.
Yeah.
So they have their own opinion on how things should work, and if they're a heavy user of Instagram, they'll expect the UI of a website to be Instagrammy. And if they're a heavy Facebook user, they'll probably expect components of the Facebook UI to be on their website. It depends what their experience is.
Yeah. Recently with a client, it's still a job that's outstanding, but I had to get somebody in to help me to do some JavaScript because they wrote down exactly what they expected things to do. And this guy helped me to put it together. I got some way, and then I can't do clever JavaScript stuff. So their brief they gave me, it does exactly what it wants. But when they came back to it, they go, oh no, we were expecting this to shrink back when we clicked off it.
Right.
And it's going to need to be redone, the work that we did, because really just needed to nail every element and not assume, we delivered what they asked for. It's just that in their head they had different behavior.
That in their head they'd asked for something completely different. But that is interesting because you do have to think about every possible way that you can interact with any element. So okay, what if we roll over it? What if we touch it with our finger? What if we then don't interact with it but touch away from it? What does it do? And so on. There's so much to think about. And our desired and probably in our case, because we're so familiar with browsing around on the internet, we're probably just relying on the most common tropes that we've seen.
Yes.
So just the most common way of achieving that is to do this. So that's what we'll do. And they might, like I said, they really want it to be like Instagram because Instagram's great and we want it to be like Instagram. And no, it wants to be like Twitter. Okay, right. Okay. Let's figure it out.
The next point, really, you touched on her point, Michelle Sullivan. So she got a list here, but basically, profile your clients, try and be a mind reader, learn to become a good design mimic is one of hers.
Nice.
She said that if you ever get the feeling that a client won't like something, then go with your gut with that. That's her tip. Develop client ESP. As soon as you think about a client and how you might need to contact them about XYZ, do it immediately. She says 9 times out of 10, a client will email you within hours.
That's an interesting approach. So she's more of the work it through yourself. If you run up against a problem, try to go with what you think is going to be the way to do it. So she's saying go with your gut, and then get the client to be in a position to contradict you if they're wrong. And she says 9 times out of 10 they'll get back to you straight away. Interesting approach to doing it. Okay.
I think she's trying. I mean, in some ways, she's just trying to say, be able to. I mean, I think the profile client, that sounds a bit ominous, but it's I think what she's trying to say is to get kind of in their head, in their shoes, try and understand them, know where they're coming from, and then if you feel that the client, I guess she's saying kind of learn your clients and what they like and try and get to understand them, get in their heads, and then avoid basically if you feel that they might contact you about something, do it before they do, and go with what you think they might like. Don't go against what you feel about that client.
I understand.
So and she threw in a couple of other ones, which was never cut and paste, always copy and paste.
I think that's so good.
Yes.
How many times have you accidentally cut and paste something and then filled the clipboard up with something and realized, it's gone forever? I mean, I guess that's just in life. Don't copy and paste, cut and paste. It's just so good.
It is. It's an obvious one, but but I think for years I didn't really know there was copy and paste. I'm sure I could just cut and paste everything.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Lastly, I'm sure it's been said already, but have a backup. That was one of hers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody, including me later, is going to say, have a backup.
Yeah, including an alternative career.
Yeah. Almost everything there should be a backup, let's be honest.
Okay, we got Ulrich Christiansen next, where I like his simple one, which was log everything that everyone is doing on your bloody site.
Yes, log all the things, including yourself, logging yourself.
Yeah. No, I know what he's on with here, because sometimes he'll be working with multiple people, something you and I don't generally have, and the client's in the middle; they don't know who's broken what without some kind of log.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are tools again out there to do that. There's a WP Security Audit Log, which does log what everybody's doing. There's we use Main WP, and they've got child reports, which is using a fork of a plugin that's out there as well. So if you're not using that, you could use the plugin called Stream, which does the same. It just tells you who's deleting and updating certain pages, or etc. So yeah, I think that's a really good tip if you've got multiple people in there. Luckily, Main WP goes on from the beginning of my installs, so I've usually got that. And
I mean, it's not just a tool to figure out who's to blame, but also what went wrong. Really useful. I don't make enough use of any of that, because I generally am the only person tinkering with it. And because I've usually only got one client. If it's not me that's broken it, it's them. So, but you can get into a tennis match of, well, I didn't do it. Well, I didn't do it. So it goes.
Yeah, Peter Ingelson as well. I've taken it from his other comments there. He added another one, which I don't know so well, which is a plugin called Simple History, which I think is doing the same thing, keeping a log of what's going on.
Yeah, I've not looked at that one, but I'll put everything we've mentioned today. I'll put in as a link in the show notes.
We've actually done all of our sections, so we maybe just got to tie up with what we think are probably out of these and our top tips, I guess. Shall I go first?
You go first. Oh, shall I go first? Because yours are more well thought through than mine.
Okay.
And so we'll end on a good point. Mine are just boring, really, and they've been mentioned mainly already. Get a backup.
Yeah.
Get some kind of security setup in place, whether that's on the server or some kind of plugin. Just another quick one is get the global palettes written down. But then we strayed into that with that Coolers website that I mentioned earlier. So in some way, write that stuff down so you have to do it over and over again. Get the SEO side of things sorted, and we talked about making sure that the search engines can crawl things, but also exclude all the things that you don't want websites to discover. So if you've got a sitemap, perhaps through an SEO plugin or something like that, I know WordPress now takes care of that for you, but make sure you've only got one sitemap and that it's not showing all the things that you really don't need it to show. Like, I don't know, you maybe don't need it to show archives of certain things if you've taken care of that in another way. And that's me. Me.
I think the worst one is to leave your templates on. So if you've used a pay builder and you've got your earlier versions of your home page created and you've not turned your templates off, Google could then be showing that to people.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah. So, mine are pretty basic, really, reflecting most of what's been said above. So I'm really with the keep things simple. I'm all about the basic learning stuff well and trying to avoid too much the plugin FOMO, trying to learn the tools that you've got. Recently, I guess my top tip would be, because we're all performance obsessed at the moment, is to focus on the waterfall when you're doing speed tests and images. They're probably the areas that are going to help you most with that. But I think we'll be talking about this in the next chat that we're going to have.
Okay.
And and also the stuff with Chantal is stuff that I need to sort out after all these years. I really need a kind of logical, scientific system to make sure that my type colors and spacing are kind of logical, if you like.
Okay, yeah, scientific system for something quite artistic. That's a nice idea. I think that one's probably done, is it? Are we through with K is for killer tips?
K is for killer tips. It's done. Shall we talk about next time? Because
L.
I haven't confirmed with you that we're going for this one, but you've seen it before anyway. But I've made it for loading, which is really, we could call it loading pages faster. So essentially, we're talking about performance, but we need the letter P for plugins.
Yes, so it's got to be that. Can't we just do L is for lazy and like record half an episode or something like that?
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get onto these performance things, because I think it's the top topic at the moment, and it is all really down to how WordPress and its various plugins and themes load things, and I think that's quite a good topic to talk about. Yeah.
Nice. So that'll be in a fortnight, 2 weeks time. So K is for Killer Tips. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any thoughts, obviously join us in the Facebook group and comment on the post and let us know what you think. I bet there's loads of killer tips that we never solicited from you. Thank you, David. That was a beautifully organised episode. Well done.
I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode. It was an absolute pleasure, as always, chatting to David about these things. Loads and loads of tips. Perhaps we missed something crucial out. If so, head over to wpbuilds.com, find episode number 230 and put a comment down there. Or, alternatively, you could go to our Facebook group, wpbuilds.com/Facebook. You can again search for episode 230 and put a comment there. We'd be most interested to know what it is that we missed, what you thought about the tips that we included, and so on. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by Termageddon. When you build contact forms for client websites, you may be forcing that client to comply with multiple privacy laws. Rather than avoiding discussing the importance of privacy policies with your clients, try out Termageddon, the auto-updating privacy policy generator. The best part is that Termageddon gives web agencies a free set of their policies forever, in the hopes that you like their product and use their reseller or referral programs to help your clients get protected too. Your clients get protected, you make more recurring revenue. Go to termageddon.com and click the Agency Partners page to receive your free license today. And A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B Split Test in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and the WordPress block editor. You can go check it out at absplittest.com. Okay, we will be back next week for a podcast episode. As this was an episode in which I was chatting to David Walmsley, next week will be an interview with probably a product creator in the WordPress space, something along those lines. And then in a fortnight, 2 weeks' time, we'll be back for the next in our series of the A to Z of WordPress. If that's not enough for you, we'll be back on Monday, wpbuilds.com/live, 2 p.m. UK time. We'll do the live version of the show. You can find that in the Facebook group or at the URL I just mentioned. And then we repurpose that and put it out on Tuesday. Go subscribe. Get all this content for free. wpbuilds.com/subscribe. Okay, that really is it for this week. It only remains for me to say I hope that you have a nice week. Stay safe. I will fade in some dreadful cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.